Welcome, y'all. It's Wes with DIY Food Plot Pro. Thanks so much for joining us. Today's episode, we're going to talk about fertilizers, specifically what fertilizers should we be looking at to put on our food plots, how do we determine how much to put, and what plots need what fertilizers. There's a ton of different blends out there, so we're going to go over them, make this really simple for everybody to understand. My name is Wes. I run the channel DIY Food Plot Pro. I've got a Bachelor of Science in Agronomy. I farm for a living, and I have an 1,800-acre white-tailed deer hunting outfitter in Western Kentucky where we cannot bait. So we rely heavily on hunting the food plots that we produce on the channel to help or aid in hunting these whitetails that we're blessed to hunt. It's getting to be that time of year to where a lot of us are starting to think about planting. It's mid-April here. We've definitely spring green up is on the way. Herbicides are going down on a lot of the food plots, trying to take care of them. We've had quite a bit of rain. We're kind of at that hurry up and wait stage. So I wanted to go over some of the different blends, what all this stuff means, make this a little bit simpler for a lot of folks, and hopefully save you some money as well. On every bag of fertilizer or every pound of fertilizer that you buy, there's three numbers. The first number is the nitrogen content, the second number is the phosphorus content, and the third is potassium. When you pick up a bag of 10, 10, 10 to spread out on your field, you're looking at 10% nitrogen, 10% phosphorus, and 10% potassium. The easy way to do that, in my opinion, and the way I always do it, is I do that into 100 pounds. Even though most of the time fertilizer bags come in 50-pound bags, I'm looking at 100-pound increments because I can do 100 pounds and I know I've got 10 pounds of N, 10 pounds of P, 10 pounds of K. Just makes the math super simple. There are a ton of different blends that are out there. The downside of the blends is most of them are leaned more towards like garden type stuff where you need a little bit of every fertilizer. You see a lot of 10, 10, 10, 15, 15, 15. A lot of food plotters have clover. It's difficult finding fertilizer that is good for clover because if you are putting 15, 15, 15 or 10, 10, 10, you're essentially doing nothing but wasting that 10% nitrogen. So all legumes do not need any form of nitrogen so long as they are inoculated before planting. Soybeans, peas, sunhemp, lab, clover, alfalfa, any legume is going to be able to make its own nitrogen through the rhizobia bacteria in the soil, so long as you inoculate that seed prior to planting. So as long as that seed is inoculated, you do not need to add any nitrogen. Matter of fact, you're doing nothing by adding that. It's just literally throwing money down the drain. When I tell people you can really do away with the nitrogen, then I get a lot of messages back from people saying, hey, we don't have that in my area. That's not available in my farm store. It's 10, 10, 10 or 20, 20, 20 or nothing. But there are a lot of blends that are available online or through your local co-ops that have fertilizer that can blend certain fertilizers together. Let's go over them. Muriate of potash is 0060, 60% potassium. Super triple phosphate is 0 nitrogen, 46 phosphorus, 0 potassium. DAP is another very common one in ag country. That is 18% nitrogen, 46% phosphorus, 0% potassium. A lot of times you will hear me on the channel that I spread an awful lot of 92330. How do I get 92330? That is a blend of DAP 18460 and a blend of muriate of potash 0060. So you blend those together and you get 92330. That's a really good mixture for a lot of corn, soybeans. I use that mixture a ton on the food plots and on the ag ground. 92330 is my go-to when it comes to adding some of all fertilizers on the field. A lot of people are adding 10, 10, 10. You might want to price check that bag of 10, 10, 10, especially if you're doing something like clover or a legume. The 0060 that shipped to your door might cost you a little bit more, but you are also getting 60%. So out of a 100-pound bag, 2 50-pound bags, you're getting 60 pounds of K, where it would take 600 pounds of 10-10-10 to get you that same 60 pounds of K that you're getting in that. Same way with the super triple phosphate, 046O, for 100 pounds, you're getting 46 pounds of P. Where if you're buying 10-10-10, per 100 pounds, you're getting 10 pounds. You have to buy 4.5 of the double bags to get you to the same amount as 2 bags of the 046O. So that is something that a lot of folks need to kind of look into and price check. I don't price check because we buy all ours in the bulk from the local farm store. It is significantly cheaper if you can buy it in the bulk. A lot of times these local farm stores and co-ops especially will have a fertilizer buggy that you can rent, you can pull with your tractor. Just be careful on any kind of hill. Those buggies loaded down with fertilizer can get really heavy. The tractor can pull it, but a lot of these newer tractors are so light that stopping it is the issue. So be really careful when loading those and don't overload the tractor, or you could be at the bottom of that hill really, really quickly. Nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium are the 3 main nutrients that we are looking at. On a soil test, nitrogen's not going to be on that soil test because nitrogen is very mobile in the soil. It moves freely through the soil. So you can't put nitrogen down right now for your fall plot. Let's say you're trying to be ahead of the game and you're putting down 300 pounds of 10-10-10 on your fall plots. Well, all of your nitrogen by the time that you get ready to plant those fall plots in the fall is going to be completely gone. Your P and your K is safe, it's tied up, but the nitrogen is not. Nitrogen is highly mobile in the soil. Potassium is somewhat mobile, but phosphorus is very immobile. So what I like to do with phosphorus is I add some every year to keep that supply coming to the soil. I highly recommend going with a soil sample company that gives you a graph, because those graphs are so much easier to read. Most of the time the graphs are going to be in pounds per acre instead of parts per million. ppm is not a huge deal doing the conversion. It's ppm times 2 equals your pounds per acre. But the graphs, they are so handy for keeping that in your notebook, and then you can tell what your ground's going to do. Your ground's going to be different than mine. With taking yearly soil samples, you can track that live on the graphs. Is my P going up? Is my K going up? What's my soil pH doing? You can track all that through the graphs. A lot of them will just have, you got 17 ppm of P in your soil. You can go back and do all the math and everything, figure all that out. That's not a big deal. It's easier when it's color coded and you can see a bar graph in there. My phosphorus is going down every single year. I need to up that rate because I'm taking more out of the soil than what I'm leaving in there. So you're not at a maintenance dose at that point. You're actually going down every year, or maybe you're building every year. So maybe you can say, okay, instead of putting down 300 pounds of 923.30, I'm going to back down to 200 or 225 or 250 pounds of 923.30 and try to maintain this level instead of trying to keep going higher and higher and higher. So for things like alfalfa, clover, most of your legumes are going to need high amounts of P and K. The corn, sunflowers, sorghums, the things that are non-legumes that are heavy nitrogen users are going to need a good shot of nitrogen to be able to produce the quality of crop that you're wanting to produce. If you starve out a corn, sorghum, sunflower, what you're going to see if you don't add enough nitrogen to it, you're going to see a real yellow looking plant. It's going to look ugly, it's going to look sickly. If you got enough nitrogen on that soil, you're going to see those plants be dark green and just have a real healthy look to them, like, Food Plotter magazine. That's what we're looking for, is that dark green color. Typically for the nitrogen, that is much more easily available because we can get urea. Most places sell urea. That's 4600, which is 46% nitrogen. You add 100 pounds of that, you're going to get 46 pounds of nitrogen. Brassicas, sunflowers, sorghums, somewhere in that 100-pound range, you're going to be in pretty good shape. Now, to get up into the corn, you're going to have to add a little bit more than that. That's not going to quite do it for the corn. I know there always is, when I put out this video every year, I know there's going to be somebody who says, I don't hardly use any nitrogen on my soil. And then we get talking and we get to find out where they're from, and then their soil is black potting soil, best of the best in the United States. I am not being hateful. Not being sarcastic about that, I'm tickled to death that that is your soil. 98% of us are not in that boat. If we do not put the fertilizer down, we do not have that level of fertility in the soil to be able to raise those kind of crops without putting inputs on them. I wish like heck we did, because my gosh, that would be handy as anything to be able to go out here and plant this whole field in corn and not have to put any fertilizer. But that's not the boat I'm in. It is very apparent when you see somebody who doesn't apply fertilizer around here, you could 1000% see where the farms around had added fertilizer and this farm had not. It was visible to the eye. The corn was about 3.5 foot tall. It was yellow as a pumpkin and it looked awful. They finally did throw the nitrogen on it. It turned it dark green, but it's too late at that point. Made a very minimal crop. All the other corn was 8 foot tall, dark green, never missed a beat. Most of us are not in that case of we cannot add fertilizer to a plot and still be able to thrive. There's very few parts of the country that have that amount of soil fertility available to them. Most of the places that is black dirt, highly fertile, where moisture is not usually a problem for them. It's typically trying to get the water out of the soil that is more of the issue for them, where the rest of us are in kind of the different boat is we have to have rain. Because our topsoil is so thin, we have very little fertility naturally occurring in the soil. This is the cards that we're dealt. So please do not try to raise a corn food plot and don't add any fertilizer to it, especially nitrogen. That's not going to work out well for you. And my goal for this channel is to help folks with their food plots, to help people succeed when they're planting these plots, and to be promoting to people to not put fertilizer on their crops or add 50 pounds of fertilizer on a crop. For most people, that's setting them up for failure. I always recommend a heavier dose of fertilizer. You're storing that in the soil. The P and the K is not going anywhere. It's going to stay right there. The nitrogen is so critical. That's the most important nutrient in fertilizer. If you don't give it nitrogen and it's not a legume, it is going to do absolutely terrible. That's just all there is to it, especially for a high nitrogen loving crop like corn, sunflowers, things like that. You've got to roll the nitrogen to it if you expect good results. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Smash that like and subscribe button if you hadn't already.